For over 40 years, a woman was hunted across America for a disease nobody understood. People feared her, authorities chased her, and anyone who thought about her claimed to see a terrifying beast. Then one day, a little boy thought about her too. Hours later, she appeared before him, and what happened next made her vanish forever. Imagine a woman so feared that federal authorities spent decades hunting her, yet she walked freely among millions every single day. She sat beside strangers in restaurants. She rode buses. She worked ordinary jobs. She attended church services and community events. People laughed with her, shared meals with her, and trusted her completely. But nobody knew who she really was. Her name changed every few weeks. Her face somehow never stayed in people's memories. Every time law enforcement believed they had found her, she would report herself under a different identity and vanish again. The disease she carried was unlike anything doctors had ever documented. Some believed it was biological. Others whispered it was supernatural. Then came the stories. Witnesses claimed that anyone who became obsessed with finding her eventually saw her. Not as a woman, as a beast, a monstrous creature appearing from nowhere, charging toward them before disappearing without a trace. Most people dismissed those stories as urban legends, until one summer afternoon in a small town in Ohio, when a curious little boy thought about her for the first time. Hours later, the most terrifying woman in American history appeared before him. And after that encounter, she was never seen again. In 1998, residents of the small town of Millfield, Ohio, woke to an emergency broadcast interrupting every television station. A woman known only as Jane X had once again evaded authorities. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had released another sketch, their 20th in 5 years. The problem was that every witness described a different person. Some said she was blonde. Others swore she had black hair. Some insisted she was elderly. Others claimed she looked no older than 30. Yet every report pointed to the same individual. According to federal files, Jane X suffered from a rare and unexplained disease first documented in Seattle, Washington, in 1984. Anyone who spent time around her unknowingly became exposed. No deaths had ever been linked to the disease, but victims reported nightmares, memory loss, paranoia, and disturbing hallucinations that could last for years. Authorities classified her as a national public health threat, yet she remained impossible to find. That same week, a waitress in Denver, Colorado, recognized Jane X from a news report. She immediately called the police. Officers arrived within minutes, but the woman was gone. What terrified investigators most wasn't her escape. It was what they discovered afterward. The woman herself had been the one who made the anonymous tip. The anonymous call from Denver changed everything. At first, investigators believed it was a prank. Why would the nation's most wanted woman report her own location? But when technicians traced the call, the answer was impossible to ignore. The call had originated from a payphone less than 2 blocks from the diner where Jane X had supposedly been seen. Someone wanted authorities to find her, or at least believe they were close. Special Agent Michael Carter of the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was assigned to the case. A veteran investigator from Chicago, Illinois, Carter had spent years tracking serial offenders and fugitives. Yet nothing in his career resembled Jane X. As he reviewed hundreds of files, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every confirmed sighting of Jane X had been reported by Jane X herself. Different voices, different accents, different names. Yet forensic analysis linked the calls together. She would enter a town, live among people for days or weeks, then anonymously report herself before disappearing. It was as though she enjoyed watching authorities chase shadows. Then another pattern surfaced. Every city she visited experienced the same strange phenomenon. Within days of her departure, residents began reporting nightmares about a giant animal-like figure with glowing eyes and twisted limbs. Most dismissed them as stress-induced hallucinations. Agent Carter wasn't so sure, because the descriptions were identical, and none of the witnesses had ever spoken to one another. 1 week later, Carter received a package that would make the case far more terrifying. The package arrived at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., without a return address. It was delivered through normal mail channels, yet no surveillance camera captured anyone dropping it off. When Agent Michael Carter opened it, he found only 3 items: a photograph, a handwritten letter, and a newspaper clipping dated 1984. The photograph showed a woman standing outside a hospital in Seattle, Washington. She appeared ordinary: dark hair, pale skin, average height. Nothing about her looked threatening. Yet everyone who viewed the image described a different woman. Some agents saw blonde. Others insisted she was older. A few claimed the woman's face seemed blurry, almost changing each time they looked at it. The handwritten letter was even stranger. It contained only one sentence: "You're closer than anyone else has ever been." There was no signature, no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing. The newspaper clipping told the story of an unexplained outbreak at Harborview Medical Center in 1984. 27 people reported severe nightmares and memory disturbances after contact with a female patient whose identity was never confirmed. The patient vanished before doctors could complete their examination. Agent Carter's stomach tightened. The date matched the first known appearance of Jane X. Then he noticed something written on the back of the photograph. A single word: think. At that exact moment, Carter remembered something horrifying. He had been thinking about her constantly for weeks. And that night, for the first time, he saw the beast. Agent Michael Carter awoke at exactly 3:17 a.m. His heart pounded so violently that he could hear it echoing in his ears. At first, he thought the nightmare was over. Then he heard breathing. Heavy, slow, deliberate. The sound seemed to come from somewhere inside his house. Carter grabbed his service weapon and moved through the darkness of his home in Arlington, Virginia. The living room was empty. The kitchen was silent. Every door was locked. Yet the breathing continued. Then he looked through the front window. Standing across the street was a creature unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was enormous. Its body resembled a wolf, a bear, and a human twisted together into one impossible shape. Its eyes glowed white. Its limbs bent at unnatural angles. And despite standing nearly 50 yards away, it seemed to be staring directly into him. Not at him, into him. Carter froze. The creature took one step forward, then another. Then it charged. He stumbled backward and fired 3 shots through the glass. The street exploded with noise. Neighbors rushed outside. Police arrived minutes later, but there was nothing there. No footprints, no blood, no evidence, only shattered glass. The next morning, Carter discovered dozens of similar reports hidden in FBI archives. Every witness had one thing in common. Before seeing the beast, they had become obsessed with finding Jane X. And every sighting brought the creature closer. Determined to uncover the truth, Agent Carter began searching for the earliest documented cases connected to Jane X. His investigation led him to a nearly abandoned town in eastern Montana called Black Hollow. The town no longer appeared on most maps. Few people even remembered it existed. Yet records showed something extraordinary had happened there in 1987. Jane X had lived in Black Hollow for almost 3 months, longer than anywhere else. When Carter arrived, fewer than 50 residents remained. Many were elderly. Most refused to speak. The moment he mentioned Jane X, doors closed, and conversations ended. Finally, an 82-year-old retired schoolteacher named Eleanor Briggs agreed to talk. Her hands trembled as she poured coffee. "We thought she was just a traveler," she said quietly. "Friendly, helpful, kind." According to Eleanor, Jane X volunteered at local events, helped neighbors repair homes, and spent evenings listening to lonely residents tell stories. Everyone loved her. Then strange things began happening. People forgot conversations they had hours earlier. Families argued over events that never occurred. Children described seeing a giant animal standing at the edge of town every night. By the end of the third month, panic spread through Black Hollow. Then Jane X disappeared. But Eleanor revealed something even stranger. After she left, no one could remember her real face. Not even the people who had known her best. And hidden beneath the town church, Carter discovered a locked room filled with journals. Every journal contained the same warning: don't think about her. Agent Carter spent the next 2 days inside the abandoned church basement, reading the journals left behind by the residents of Black Hollow. There were dozens of them: teachers, farmers, store owners, children. Every journal told a different story, yet all arrived at the same terrifying conclusion. The longer someone thought about Jane X, the stronger her influence became. One journal belonged to Reverend Samuel Pierce, the town's former pastor. His entries began normally. He described Jane X as polite, intelligent, and remarkably compassionate. She attended church every Sunday and often stayed afterward helping elderly members of the congregation. But as the weeks passed, his writing changed. The sentences became frantic. The pages were filled with warnings. One entry stopped Carter cold. She doesn't want to hide. She wants to be remembered. Thinking about her is how she travels. Another entry described the beast. According to Pierce, the creature wasn't chasing people. It was following their thoughts. Every sighting occurred shortly after someone became obsessed with finding Jane X. Then came the final journal entry, written just days before the woman vanished. The beast isn't protecting her. The beast is her. Carter stared at the words for several minutes. Then he heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, measured. Someone was walking through the abandoned church. And according to local police, nobody else was supposed to be there. The footsteps continued above Agent Carter's head. Slow, deliberate. Each step echoed through the abandoned church like a warning. He quietly closed the journal, drew his weapon, and climbed the narrow staircase leading from the basement. The sanctuary was dark. Moonlight spilled through cracked stained glass windows, painting strange patterns across the floor. At first, he saw no one. Then a voice spoke from the front pew. "You're getting too close, Michael." Carter froze. A woman sat alone near the altar. She appeared to be in her mid-30s. Dark hair, gray coat, calm expression, ordinary in every possible way. Yet something felt wrong. The moment Carter looked directly at her, details seemed to shift. Her age changed. Her hair color appeared different. Even her voice sounded slightly altered each time she spoke. "Jane X," Carter whispered. The woman smiled. "That's not my name." "Then what is?" Her smile faded. "I don't remember." For the first time in decades, the most wanted woman in America sat only a few feet away from an investigator. Yet Carter felt no triumph, only dread, because the woman looked genuinely frightened. And she said something that shattered everything he believed. "They think I'm the danger." She looked toward the church doors. "No, Michael. The thing that's hunting me is finally here." A massive shadow moved outside the stained glass windows, and the entire church began to shake. The church trembled as something enormous moved outside. Dust rained from the ceiling. Ancient wooden beams groaned. Agent Carter rushed toward a window and looked out. His blood turned cold. Standing in the cemetery beyond the church was the beast. But this time it was different, far larger than any previous description. Its body towered above the gravestones. Its glowing eyes illuminated the darkness like searchlights. And worst of all, its face resembled the woman sitting behind him. Not perfectly, but enough to make the connection impossible to ignore. Carter spun around. Jane X was staring at the creature through the glass. Tears filled her eyes. "It found me again," she whispered. "What is it?" Carter demanded. For several seconds, she remained silent. Then she revealed a secret she had hidden for more than 40 years. In 1984, doctors had not discovered a disease. They had awakened something. During an experimental neurological study at a Seattle research facility, a group of scientists attempted to map human consciousness. The experiment failed. One participant disappeared. Another died, and Jane X emerged changed. Something had attached itself to her mind. A living thought, a predator that fed on attention, memory, and fear. The more people thought about her, the stronger it became. The creature outside wasn't following her. It was growing through her. Then the church doors exploded inward, and the beast entered. The church doors shattered into splinters. The beast squeezed through the opening, its massive frame scraping against the walls as stained glass exploded around it. Agent Carter fired instinctively. The bullets passed through the creature as though it were made of smoke and shadow. The beast barely noticed. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on Jane X. Not with rage, with hunger. The woman backed away toward the altar. For the first time, Carter saw genuine terror on her face. 42 years, she whispered. I've spent 42 years running. The beast took another step. The church groaned under its weight. Then Jane X told Carter the truth. The entity survived because people feared it. Authorities hunting her. Witnesses sharing stories. Researchers studying her. Every rumor strengthened the thing connected to her consciousness. The more humanity focused on the mystery, the larger it became, which explained why it had grown so powerful. But one person had affected it differently. A child, several months earlier, in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, an 8-year-old boy named Ethan Walker had heard local legends about Jane X. Unlike everyone else, Ethan wasn't afraid. He didn't think of her as a monster. He thought of her as a lonely woman, and when he imagined meeting her, he wished he could help her. That single act had done something impossible. It weakened the beast. Now Jane X knew where she had to go. 3 days after the attack at Black Hollow Church, Agent Carter and Jane X arrived in Columbus, Ohio. For the first time in decades, she was not running. She was heading directly toward the one person who had changed everything. 8-year-old Ethan Walker lived with his parents in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. When Jane X knocked on the door, Ethan immediately recognized her. Not from photographs, not from news reports, from his thoughts. "You finally came," he said. The woman nearly broke into tears. For 42 years, every person who looked for her had seen danger. Every person who thought about her had fed the thing attached to her. But Ethan saw something else. A human being. Nothing more. Nothing less. That evening, as the sun disappeared below the horizon, Jane X sat with Ethan in his backyard. The beast appeared shortly after dark, larger than ever, towering above the trees, its white eyes burning through the night. Agent Carter watched helplessly, yet Ethan simply stood up and looked at it. "I know what you are," the boy said. The creature hesitated. For the first time, fear appeared in its glowing eyes. Because Ethan wasn't afraid of it. And without fear, it had nothing to feed upon. The beast began to disappear. But what happened next would become the greatest mystery of all. At midnight, a brilliant flash of white light illuminated the Walker family's backyard. Neighbors reported hearing a distant roar that seemed to come from everywhere at once. When Agent Carter regained consciousness moments later, both the beast and Jane X were gone. No body was ever found. No evidence remained. No explanation was discovered. The federal investigation remained open for years before eventually being sealed. Some believe Jane X sacrificed herself to destroy the entity. Others argued that she and the creature had finally become one and vanished together. Agent Carter spent the rest of his life searching for answers. He never found them. As for Ethan Walker, he rarely spoke about that night. Whenever reporters asked what happened, he always gave the same response. She wasn't evil. She was just tired. To this day, strange sightings occasionally surface across the United States. A woman helping strangers before disappearing. Anonymous calls reporting impossible locations. People dreaming of a beast with glowing eyes. Most dismiss these stories as urban legends. But every legend begins somewhere. And if one day you hear a story about a woman everyone fears but nobody can find, ask yourself one question. Did she disappear? Or is she waiting for someone to remember her again?